About 5 years ago, I did a video on a 2013 Mercedes-Benz C300 4matic, and fast forward to today, we're taking a look at the same model here in 2022. Now, during that time, I also featured a 2011 Mercedes C63 AMG. That was a great car to be able to test drive, and also to be able to show you kind of what the differences were between a facelift model like this, as well as the pre-facelift model, as well as the AMG. But this, my friends, is a 2013 Mercedes-Benz C300 4matic sedan. It is a W204 if you're into the chassis codes when it comes to these Mercedes-Benz models. And like I mentioned, we've done two other ones, as well as the newer and older versions of the C-Class. So we've covered quite a lot of the Mercedes-Benz C-Class over the years here on Test Drive, but this one is going to be a winter review, something that we don't usually get to do with these cars. Now, here in Canada, the W204 ran from 2008 until the 2014 model year and came with three different regular engine trims. The C250, which was the entry level, you could not get that in the US, used a smaller engine and had less kit. The C300 was the most popular, and then the C350 was the upgraded version. Even in 2013, it had the same engine as this C300, but it was the full power out of that engine, whereas this one uses it, but it's a detuned version. And then obviously you had the C63 AMG. Now, the facelift came out in 2012, changed the front and rear end as well as the inside. I feel the interior got the biggest improvement. One of the complaints that I had when we did the 2011 AMG was it just felt kind of dated. And even on this one, it's a little dated still with the number pad for your phone on the right side of the infotainment area. But overall, not too bad. So going for the facelift definitely will help if you're interested in making it feel a little bit more modern. But besides that, I want to talk about how this car is on a daily basis here in Quebec, here in Canada, and why you might want to be considering a 9-year-old Mercedes-Benz C-Class in 2022. Now, like I said, the C250 was the entry-level version for our market here in Canada. Essentially, all the C300s and C350s came the way that this one does, with the AMG line package. So you've got the sport grille on the front with the large Mercedes star in the grille rather than the regular horizontal bars that you would find. And on the C250, you would have that with the hood ornament. It was really the only way to get it. There are some 250s that were sold that have this sport package on it, but if you're going for a C300, this is basically the way that it would come. Now, back in 2013, when this car was new, there were a couple options here in Canada. The C250 was a 4-cylinder, rear-wheel drive only. You could have had the C300 4matic, which this one is. They also had the C350, which was rear-wheel drive or 4matic. So it really depends on what you wanted out of your vehicle. The C350 is a little bit more desirable for people who are looking for a little bit more performance out of it. But when it comes to a daily driving vehicle, this is good enough. It uses a 3.5-liter V6 engine, naturally aspirated, 248 horsepower, 251 pound-feet of torque, with the Mercedes 7G-tronic automatic transmission. There's no flappy paddles on this, but again, you don't really need it. And we'll talk a little bit about it when we go on our road test. Now, this vehicle doesn't have navigation, doesn't have Sirius XM, and there isn't a backup camera. However, those were some options that you might be able to find. If you go back and watch the video we did on the 2013 C300, you'll see that it had a lot of those features. It had the command navigation system, it had blind spot monitoring, and had some other features. But this one, at least, you have bi-xenon headlamps, LED daytime running lights, high beam assist, which is a nice feature to have, and no keyless entry, but you do have a key fob that you can lock and unlock the vehicle and pop the trunk open with, and you put it into the dashboard, which is fine. I mean, it's 2013. In fact, when I drive this car, I'm reminded a lot by my 2001 BMW 7 Series. Very similar. This is Obsidian Black Metallic paint. The inside is beige leatherette. So similar color combination that I had on the 7 Series, but now in a C-Class. Overall, works pretty well. Now, why would you consider it? As I mentioned, obviously you get 4matic with this trim. It's got a V6 engine. It's naturally aspirated. And for the most part, there isn't too much to go wrong, especially with a facelift. If you're in the market for a W204, I highly recommend going for the facelift. Not only does it look a little bit more modern than the 2011s or older, but there's less problems with it. Now, to be fair, there really aren't that many common problems when it comes to this generation C-Class, but the problems that exist really are limited to the pre-facelift models. Things like wiring issues, electrical issues, mass airflow sensor issues, things like that are more or less limited to those early models, not so much with the facelift. So if you're going for something like this, you should be surprised if it's been well maintained, well taken care of. then it will be in good shape. A lot of these on the market today here in Canada have about 130 to 160, 70,000 kilometers on it, which is not too bad overall for a compact executive luxury vehicle. But I want to take it on the road. I want to talk about how this vehicle performs. It's got 4matic. It has Toyo Observe G3 ICE tires. They are very good winter tires on here. So we're going to be talking about how this vehicle is and, again, why you might want to be considering this in the used market today. Well, it's another very crisp morning here in Quebec. It's currently minus like 15 degrees Celsius. It's been pretty cold the last little while, which is, a bit of a bummer. I've been hoping to film this car for quite some time now, but it's just been too cold. I wanted to be able to present it in the best possible light. So finally, we've got a decent enough week that I can film, and the car was clean. Now let's talk a little bit about this car. First off, we always do like to mention our fuel economy. I did my 100 kilometer test loop in this little V6 engine in 8.9 liters per 100 kilometers. Overall, not bad at all. If you're looking at a somewhat fuel efficient option, this shouldn't be too bad. And for the most part, I mean, it's efficient, right? It's a naturally aspirated V6 engine. There's nothing overly performance about it. It's detuned, which I actually think is best for overall longevity because the engine isn't working as hard. So your fuel economy is not bad. Performance is pretty good out of this size of vehicle, and it works. And the other thing I wanted to talk about too are the winter tires. We are using Toyo Observe G3 ICE. I believe it's the first time that I've used these specific tires. I have had phenomenal success with Toyo Observe GSI 5 tires and even the 6 series tires. Those have been extremely good. And if you're looking for sort of like super top end stuff, really nothing so far has beaten the Pirelli Scorpion winters. Not to be confused with the Soto Zeros, those are not super good, but the Scorpion winter tires are fantastic. But I'm pretty impressed with this. I mean, it's got 4matic all-wheel drive. You're good to go in rough conditions. And actually, when I took this car out the first time, it was still on summer tires, and they were just your sort of generic performance summer tires, and I have to say that they were really good in the snow. So now that I've got winter tires on here, it's been even better. So we have a little bit of snow on the roads here today, nothing overly dramatic, but kind of gives you an idea of how this car performs. We've had great success with pretty much any of the luxury cars that we've driven with all-wheel drive. And I did mention there were some different configurations depending on which year and which engine trims you went with. Pretty much the C300 here in Canada was only 4matic. If you went with the C350, again, same engine, but you get the full power out of it, you could have had either 4matic or rear wheel only. So I think it depends on what you're going for out of your vehicle. Personally, I prefer having all-wheel drive. But that brings us to the point of this video. Obviously, it's nice to be able to talk about the car and feature it, especially about 5-6 years after we did one last, but why would you be considering this today? Because when I drove the 2013 C300 last, it was essentially just off lease. It was a certified pre-owned at the time, pretty low mileage overall, and the price was, what did I say in that one? It was like $30,000 Canadian. So now the prices have come down quite a bit. You can get these anywhere from about $10,000 to about $18,000 Canadian. Obviously, if you're buying something like the C63 AMG, it's going to be closer to that 30-35 mark, maybe even more, depending on how much kilometers or mileage has been done on it and if there's any modifications. But for the most part, you're looking at a pretty, straightforward, affordable luxury vehicle. Does it make sense to buy that in 2022? I'd say so. I say that you're still getting a good amount of carb. As I mentioned, there's no backup camera on this, but you could add it. If you wanted to buy one and keep it, you can certainly add it. You can add some other things to modernize it a little bit, and depending on which ultimate trims you get, if you find one that's a little bit better loaded than this one, then you should be in good shape. But like I said, when I was looking at the sort of issues with this, any common problems, anything that you would want to know about reliability, I couldn't find anything that was that bad. I mean, everything that really comes down to the problems of this car related to the smaller engines that were only available in Europe, the diesel engines, again, not available here in North America, and pre-facelift stuff. So if you're buying one of these, I think you should be pretty good. And the facelift model prices are noticeably more expensive than the pre-facelift one. So you're going to be getting a decent amount of car for the price. You really can't go wrong with this. But let's talk about the rest of the experience driving this car. I like it. It's a question I was asked the other day. Is this firm or soft compared to something like the E-Class of the same era? And I would say that this is definitely firmer. One of the things that you're going to get with an E-Class is you're going to have the aromatic air suspension. There isn't anything like that on this car. It's just a regular suspension system. So for the most part, reliability down the road is going to be much better because you don't have to worry about those parts falling apart. But at the same time, you don't have that air suspension, meaning it's not going to ride the same way, which is fine. I mean, if you're looking for a firmer ride, this is, you know, honestly really in line with something like the BMW 335i that I drove. Not as much performance, and this is a sedan, whereas that was a convertible, but you kind of get that idea. Like, it is a more firm ride. It's a sportier feel, even though I don't usually think that that's what you're getting with this. It's still more luxury oriented, but if you're looking for that, if you're looking for a little bit more input from the road, you want to feel a little bit more of it, then this is definitely a good way to go. But I have enjoyed driving it. I enjoyed driving it when I drove it a long time ago, and I definitely had fun when I drove the C63 AMG. But this is the one that you should take if you're looking for a good daily driver, because the performance is there, the ride is there, comfort is good too. Yeah, okay, these are like imitation leatherette seats. They're not the worst, they're also not the best. And you can see I don't have the control panels on the doors for the seats. It's how you know that this one was a very lightly optioned vehicle. The controls are on the seats themselves, but you know what? Like I said, it holds up pretty well. I think that the design is easily one of the best ones that Mercedes-Benz has done. I just love the look of it, especially with the sport package, the AMG line package on here, as they call it. So you've got the sport grille. It just looks really good. Very similar to the other Mercedes models that were out at the time, but it still holds up today. You look at this on the road today, and it certainly doesn't feel like you're driving a 9-year-old car, because that's what it is. This is a 9-year-old Mercedes. Not that long ago, it was brand new. So I enjoy it. I like driving it. I think it looks good. Take it for a little rip here. That's not even full throttle, because obviously the roads are crap here, but it picks up very well. You know, for a naturally aspirated V6, it isn't sport oriented in the traditional sense, but it certainly gets the job done. So if you're looking for something that you're going to enjoy on a daily basis, this car is what I would consider to be pretty high mileage as well. We're sitting at 221,000 kilometers. And you know what? Out of all the cars I've driven on test drive, the ones that surprise me the most are the incredibly high mileage Mercedes-Benz. I'm reminded of the S55 AMG that I did. That car felt and looked like it just came off the showroom floor, and that one had a lot of miles on it. And same thing with this. Is it perfect? No, there's some small issues here and there with the cosmetics of the vehicle, but the mechanics of this car work great. It really does feel like it's brand new. Engine is good, transmission is good, the suspension system feels like it should. Everything works very well on this car, and it is what you would consider to be a high mileage model. So if you're looking at one of these, you definitely do your research first. Go in and make sure that it's got the service history, everything's been taken care of. You want to make sure that you can avoid buying something that could be a problem down the road. But these are somewhat straightforward vehicles. Like we talked about when we did, what was it, the 2011 or 2013 GLS? That was a pretty big SUV, and we talked about it at the time that there really wasn't a whole lot that could go wrong with that car. The diesel on it was the sort of sore spot, but the vehicle itself, there really wasn't that much, and same goes for this. So if you're looking for something like this, get the service history. Not necessarily a low mileage vehicle. If it's got mileage on it and it's got the service history, then you know it's been taken care of. And ideally, if you can find somebody who was maybe the first owner, they were in their 70s or 80s when they bought it, and then when they got rid of it, it's because they were just a little too old to drive, then you know it was taken care of. Because that's what I did with this.